It's B. My neighbors have their $100 a week landscapers over, so this video might be a little loud. So, I think it was Saturday, maybe this Sunday, I broke 10K subscribers here. So first of all, thank you so much for that. I know I don't sound super excited. I'm just a very type B person in general, and we'll talk a little bit more about why I'm not overly excited as well, and it's more my own mental issues more than anything else. But to put it in perspective, I went to IUP. That's a state school here in Pennsylvania. It's about an hour away from where I live currently. And it's the same school that Johnny Sins went to for context. So it's just kind of weird. Johnny Sins was also in my football section, his high school at least. I don't play football, can't stand the sport. Anyway, just a very small world when you think about it. That student body as of 2023 is about 9,000. Okay. And the statistic could be wrong, but when I went there, it was the 7th largest student body in Pennsylvania per campus. So that's kind of crazy that the most amount of people that I will ever talk to or ever had like a connection with, I've already surpassed with just this channel alone. So thank you. It's crazy that you will listen to me about something so niche and so technically taboo that it's just nutty to think about, right? But that kind of brings me to my next point, and we're gonna need a little bit of context for me to talk about this a bit more. So April 2022, I had what I'm calling almost an ego death, or at least I started this process. Basically, I had such a big chip on my shoulder because I was overlooked with sports and all kinds of stuff, and then I had pretty high standard parents, so like nothing I ever did was good enough. So basically, part of the motivational process that I developed is that I needed to find something that people didn't believe I could do. For example, play basketball very well, or, get gigantic. One of my ex-girlfriends said I would never look like the biggest guy at our school. I am probably bigger than him now, but I've also used anabolic, so Anyway, so basically there's always this fire in me that I need to be better than someone else. That chip on my shoulder basically caused me to just become angrier and angrier to the point where it just caused a bunch of shit. I snapped on people, and it did not make me look good in the process. So I knew something needed to change. I started studying something called Stoicism, which is a classical philosophy about controlling your emotions, perceiving the world correctly so that way you can't go overboard with anxiety and stuff like that. It's very useful, but one of the issues that I noticed with it is that since I used to think so highly of myself up here, I kind of did the flip, and I thought too lowly of myself, which is really weird. You hear, you gotta be humble, you gotta be this, you gotta be, chill. But at the same time, if you think too lowly of yourself, you'll never get anything done because you don't believe you can do it. Or you'll be kind of a Debbie Downer on yourself, and then, it'll show in your work a bit. And it's kind of funny because now that I think about it, I created a group message with Perv and Hank about PE and stuff like that. And I called it Make BD Feel Uneducated, because both these guys are experts in their field. They know much more about the body than me. So to me, I felt like the little kid in the room with them. But the truth of the matter is that, granted, Hank helped me a ton building r/getting bigger. It is still a lot of my own hard work, and I need to start respecting my own work, if that makes sense. So what my author that I usually read calls it is true neutral, Ryan Holiday. And I think this was stillness is the key that I picked this up from, is that you don't want to think too highly of yourself. You also don't want to think too lowly of yourself. You need to be where the truth of it is. And if we just go through what my truths are, I have my own bachelor's degree in software engineering and a minor in business. So any issues with business and technical stuff I know I should be able to handle. 2, I run the largest penis enlargement community ever, and it's still consistently growing. It's probably going to break 100K this year. Who knows what it'll be in 2024 and 2025. I started my first business at 23 or 24, but it broke even within the first 2 weeks. Granted, it was a very small business, but it's still going and it's still growing at an organic rate. Then with my second business, Leviathan Wellness, we just turned a pretty sizable profit this month. It just depends if we're going to take a payout or pay back in to the business. But to put it in perspective, I was a software engineer before I did this full time. I've already made back what I lost when I quit my job, and almost doubled technically my income in 2 months since quitting my job. That's honestly quite the accomplishment. And I could not have done it without you guys, obviously. You guys are my customers. Without you, I would not be me, and yeah. But another thing is that I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but with penis enlargement, I kind of feel like I finally got all the pieces together, right? So like we know what collagen does, we know what endothelial tissue does. We put that together, we have a very solid foundation for mechanical penis enlargement. On top of that, we know that we now actually have metrics to shoot for, and that's probably never been done in penis enlargement. Like, what form said you needed to do 4 to 6% strain while you're hanging to guarantee gains? Probably none of them, right? I don't really check the forms anymore, but that's what I'm saying is, like, there is a lot of novel stuff that I do. And it's funny because now that I'm like kind of coming out of this low point, I'm trying to come back up here. I'm probably a little too high right now, if I'm being honest, but a lot of people are taking my newfound confidence in my own teachings as arrogance. So, for example, in the last video I did, I came off as a hotshot asshole because I just snapped. My ego snapped, basically. And one of the comments was like, it's because you come off arrogant and that's why people don't like you all that much. Granted, it was one comment, and then out of the 40 other comments just on the YouTube channel was nothing but support. But it made me think about the first time I started putting on muscle mass in high school. People said I was getting cocky because I was more comfortable in my own skin. So like, it's just funny to think about that. Just because you're finally comfortable about your own, work, your own body or whatever, is going to make someone angry. Someone's not going to like it because either they're insecure or they don't like your tone or whatever. But I can't control what they do, so I shouldn't really worry about it. It's just sometimes your emotions get the better of you. So, let's see. I had some notes. And this is probably a good tangent into this since we talked about last video. I have very huge issues with people that are against change. And this kind of comes up to where I grew up. I'm not going to give you the names because I don't want you to harass my parents. You can figure out who I am pretty easily. That's how small of a town I lived in. But essentially, it's your classic working class town. In the 70s and 80s, the steel mill started to decline, and by the 90s it was dead because of automation for one, and two, a lot of these companies actually moved south because they had weaker labor regulations. So actually most of the small towns in my area lost so much employment and so much production, and they kind of entered this depression. Other towns around me made it up by, say, switching to like a medical focus. Where I live now has a bunch of hospitals and stuff. But my old hometown is still dead set that the mills are returning. And it's been almost 50 years since it started declining. But because of their culture, they are afraid of change. They think things need to stay the same way. But we all know change is inevitable. And if we're so focused on keeping the things the way they are, we can't embrace, or we can't plan properly for the future. So My hometown has been declining for 50 years with no end in sight. So I had to leave my own hometown to get a job, basically. Otherwise, I'd be driving an hour and 20 minutes to downtown Pittsburgh every day to get, reasonable employment. So my hometown suffered a huge brain drain because, literally all of my friends have moved out of my hometown. They're either living closer to the downtown or they're living on the, cool side of, Pittsburgh. And it's been the story for decades at this point. So it's basically just a town that's been slowly dying forever because they cannot embrace change. And it's funny because my dad was on the town council for a bit and he was trying to do all these work initiatives, but it wouldn't even be people on the town council that would come in and bitch. It'd be just some random yokel like, oh, we don't need this. We don't need these young people in our town. Well, look what happened. Your average age is 45. Okay? 2/3 of you are on Social Security. And that's the only way this town has any tax revenue is Social Security. Okay? But yeah, so going back to PE and stuff, when I hear people oh, we just need to focus on the old school stuff because we know it works, that's bullshit, right? Because to me, it's just I see what we need to do. I'm not asking us to change much, but to them, the idea of this change does not make sense to them because either one, I know this works, so I'm going to stick with my guns because they're too stubborn to change their mind, or whatever. But yeah, that's my biggest pet peeve. Is actually there's two biggest pet peeves. One, fear of change. Two, talking down to me as if I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, okay. I don't know what it is about the second one. It has to do with my chip on my shoulders. But when you do that, debate Lord BD comes out, and it's not normally pretty. And then last thing I want to talk about before I go is I was reading Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday. Not sure if I mentioned it in this take or not, but one of the chapters that always made me think, and it took me a while to understand it until recently, is the idea of willful will. And there's this Japanese archer teacher, I think it was Musashi, was his last name or family name. And essentially he was a world-renowned archer. But at the time he was teaching archery, you didn't really need gunpowder was a thing. So it became more of an art form and a form of Zen meditation almost. So a lot of his students would focus on the target when they were shooting. And he called that the willful will. And his thing is, you do not focus on the target. You focus on all the little things around you to get ready to shoot and hit the target. So, good form, your breath, everything else. And once you finally let go of the goal, that's when you can finally work towards the goal. Because otherwise, you're going to be missing so many of the little things along with it. So, for example, if you are so focused on breaking, let's say, 10K a month, that was my goal about 2 years ago. I was so focused on that, I only looked at my current revenue streams and how I can improve them. So if we're talking about my full-time employment, I could only focus on getting that bonus at the end of the year, getting the performance review, higher promotions and stuff like that. And then at the time, I don't even think I was making client calls and stuff like that. So that was really it. So if I put all my effort in focusing on building up my career path, I would have missed everything else that I could have done. So, for example, I started coaching about 3 months after that, just because it's this is kind of easy money. And then I started making lotion right after, also pretty easy money. But that's still, I was kind of short-sighted in my goal. And eventually we started selling equipment, and that was a good thing. But even then, that's kind of short-sighted. So one of my new clients is an online marketer, and he said something along the lines of is that if you do if you tweak how you present yourself with your information, and to be honest, paywall some of it, you can make a ludicrous amount of money just because you have a basically proven and scientific method that no one else has really done before. Again, his words, not mine. But granted, yeah, I have a pretty sound science behind this stuff now. So that also brings me to another point, and before I go, is first of all, nothing is changing with the Reddit, nothing's changing with this YouTube. All I'm doing is I'm taking some time and focusing on first writing my first book. Second, I'm going to be developing a course for this stuff because Reddit kind of makes it a pain in the ass to find stuff anymore. And what basically the idea is I'm going to have all the information out there for free. If you want it to be a quick, easy system, you can sign up for my course, or you can buy these books, figure it out yourself on the Reddit, depending on what you can afford to pay for. Okay, there's not going to be any like members only aside from like clients and stuff. There might be like support groups for the books and such, just, you know, value added. But Reddit is always going to be basically my number one group until it's shut down by Spez. You know, that's always the rumor, right? Or, you know, getting bigger at .io. My public reach is always going to be my main focus. It's just, based off what this guy was telling me, the money is too good for me not to take the 20 hours to write the book. You know, marketed just a tad to, you know, plebeians that don't already know about penis enlargement, and then go from there. As for the course, I'm pretty excited too, just because one is going to be pay as you go. So like once you already learned all this stuff, you don't need it. You can just, you know, hit the unsubscribe button and move on. But with the course, I can also update it as needed. And yeah, it's just going to be cool, and it will also make my coaching services much more smooth. Another thing I need to fix is he also pointed out that my Patreon to Discord to Telegram pipeline, whatever. Did I say Telegram? I meant Zoom. Is very clunky, and there's already like software that handles all this stuff for you. Not to mention that I send them a document in Word and then I get it back in Pages, and since Apple's an asshole, they don't let you read .pages documents without a MacBook. It's a genius idea, Apple, but basically I need to set up this software so that way I can offload all my current clients onto that, and then I can pick up more clients because my life is easier. So yeah, this video ran very long. I have a lot of things planned, but I still need to focus on getting this right a little bit before I can really get into, say, third and fourth gear to, like, you know, push myself to the finish line. It's not a race, but like the sooner I get caught up, the sooner I can do all the other things I want to do. So for, like, again, we hit 10K. Thank you so much. Big things are coming in the future that will make everyone's lives easier, especially mine. Yeah. Before I go, thanks Hank, thanks Perv. Hank especially because, you know, you're based with the first venture capital person in Leviathan Wellness, and then because of that, we were able to pull it off. And then Perv, just thank you for challenging me, because I don't know, me and you hit it off pretty well, and I need someone that's able to challenge me like that, I guess. So, okay, my battery is about to go. My camera's about to die. I'll see you in the next one.